On September the 7th, 1936, the last known thylacine in captivity died due to human neglect. And this work is a tribute to that thylacine. Dream of the Thylacine is Erth's latest work. It's a work inspired by the book of the same name, written by Margaret and illustrated by Ron Brooks. It's an exhibition that has artworks created by Indigenous artists from Tasmania, ephemera collections from invertebrate curators of museums, artefacts or specimens of supposed thylacine scatological remains. And it's also an event that combines the best of both performance and the magic of museum exhibitions at their best. In early 2011, I was visiting the Tasmanian Museum in Hobart, and I picked up a copy of Margaret and Ron Brooks' book, Dream of the Thylacine, and I was immediately overwhelmed by the sheer emotional capacity that it had, even though it was a book that contained over 130 words and 9 illustrations. It's now more than 2 years since then, and we've just recently presented a performance based on that book in both the Tasmanian Museum in Hobart, but also the Queen Victoria Museum in Launceston. So the work has been presented to Tasmanians, and in both cases, the responses were overwhelming. We brought audiences to tears.
In cage of twisty wire, cold concrete, prowl, rage, howl.
But also we brought audiences to a place where there's a lot of solace and thought and consideration from both adults and children. And a work that can do this is a work that we are very, very proud of. There's quite a few great things that I've learnt in doing this project. One of them is the way that thylacine sits within people's hearts. One of the features of the show are a series of interviews that we conducted throughout Tasmania with people from really diverse backgrounds.
And she said to people, she said it was definitely a Tassie tiger.
You can actually see the sun, they can see stripes on it, but they don't say anything because no one believes in it.
One of the other really great things that we learnt during the creation of this work is that thylacines aren't exclusive to Tasmania. Thylacines were widespread throughout the mainland of Australia. There are mummified remains that have been found on the Nullarbor Plain. There are petroglyphs in the Pilbara that date back to 30 to 40,000 years old. There are thylacine remains that have been found in Queensland and cave artwork in Arnhem Land. And actually there are stories of thylacines that go right up into Papua New Guinea and Indonesia. So this makes the thylacine a much more cosmopolitan creature, something that more people can actually engage with because they perhaps have a greater sense of it belonging geographically. And I was talking with the director of the Natural History Museum in Dublin about our project, and he became very excited about it and informed me of how fascinated Europeans are with the thylacine. In fact, they are more fascinated than what Australians apparently seem. So it feels like this work is not a work that is limited to just sort of reaching out and affecting people in Tasmania, but the people of Australia and in turn the rest of the world. Why an exhibition and a show? There's something that shows do that exhibitions can't do. But then at the same time, there are things that exhibitions do that shows can't do. And for the last decade, Erth has been treading this precarious bridge between cultural institutions and theatres. And we've learned a lot, and this show is a demonstration of how we can put that learning into practice. Our show can, or a performance can reach out and touch you in amazing emotional ways by the way that you present music, or the words, or the text, or the visuals that you ask your audience to witness.
Ailing am I, in cage of twisty wire, cold concrete.
There are things that you can hold in your hand, and there are things that you hold in your heart. By combining those two things together, you get a really well-rounded perspective. And that's the reason why we've put performance with exhibition. That we take two elements that don't really go together, but by weaving them into a world of our own making, or our own devising, we give an audience an access or a perspective that would not otherwise be experienced. One of the things that we underestimate as humans is our connection to animals. I mean, many people do have a connection through their pets, but we live in a society that believes that it is above all other living organisms. The loss of the thylacine may to some just seem like another animal that's gone extinct, because, let's face it, there are thousands of organisms that have gone extinct since the arrival of humankind on the face of this planet. However, the empathy that our show creates or gives to our audience perhaps becomes a bit of a surprise to some people as to how much they empathise with the plight of a creature that now no longer exists. And one of the beautiful things about the work is that it does give a glimmer of hope. There are stories still today of people who say that they see them. And I think that everybody takes away from our performance the hope that, even though it may sound fantastical or almost mythological, that somewhere out there in the wild wilderness of Tasmania, there are thylacines that are thriving and living happily without human intervention.